Welcome to comedy speech.
Natural selection is the process of species changing over time based on which characteristics are more beneficial for the species environment. Charles Darwin first observed the natural selection process on the Galapagos Islands in the birds that lived there. He observed that the birds on the island had developed beaks different than those of the birds on the mainland, which were better for getting into berries and nuts that grew on the island, but rather than the mainland. The birds with beaks were more suitable for obtaining food, were inevitably more successful in surviving and reproducing, and over time, the less suited birds died off. Natural selection is a process that has affected and shaped every species on the planet, including humans. For the thousands of years that people have been around, we've been evolving, developing traits that are beneficial for our survival. Meaning that those traits that were beneficial, or those that had traits that were beneficial, flourished, and those that did not subsequently died out. But society today is different. It is no longer survival of the fittest. We aren't competing for food or for survival. It is very rare for a person to die because of the characteristics they are born with. Now, that certainly doesn't mean that this never happens, but for the most part, people are able to cope with whatever ailments they were born with through modern technology. This doesn't mean that natural selection has stopped happening. It just means that the process has changed. We are still passing on new genes and characteristics as we reproduce, but the consequences are much less life-threatening. With globalization, people from every corner of the world are able to exist in the same environment. We see a change in the shades of skin color. It is becoming more and more common for people to marry outside their race or cultures, and this, in turn, affects how future generations will look. Humans are evolving based on the food we eat. When we became more civilized as a species, we learned how to cook and tame animals and use them for sustenance. Over time, this consequently changed our genetic makeup. The appendix is an organ that was used for processing uncooked meat back when humans regularly ate red, uncooked meat. Once we discovered that we could cook our meat and it would both be safer and tastier, we would begin to slowly lose the use of our appendix. A great example of how humans are affected by their own evolution is how we've adapted to digest dairy. Humans produce a lactase enzyme when young to be able to digest milk when they're infants. Humans used to only produce this enzyme in their infancy and suppress it in their later years. When humans began to domesticate animals, it became advantageous to be one of the few humans who continued to produce the lactase enzyme in their adulthood. As a result, those humans were able to be more successful in survival and reproduction. And over many generations, humans that continued to produce this lactase enzyme became the more dominant demographic in the human population. A more specific example takes place in Tibet. Tibet's high elevation and thin air easily can cause oxygen deprivation in some humans. The local population of women in Tibet can be divided into two distinct groups. With differing concentrations of oxygen in their blood, the population of women with higher concentrations of oxygen in their blood gave birth to children who had a higher chance of surviving their infancy than the children of women who had lower concentrations of oxygen in their blood. This means that the population of Tibet is evolving towards having a greater proportion of people with higher concentrations of oxygen in their blood. Now, if you think of the traditional natural selection where the smartest, fastest, and strongest survive and go on to create the next generation, you realize that it's not the smartest and the fastest and the strongest reproducing it more. It's plausible to think that human evolution is declining and that we are becoming increasingly less intelligent and a less healthy society. There's a movie called Idiocracy that explains this very well. The movie is a comedy about an average man who travels several hundred years into the future, and he finds that human intelligence has declined over time due to the lack of traditional natural selection. Studies show that people of lower intelligence have the tendency of having more children in their lifetime, So because of this, the human population may become predominantly less intelligent in the future. Now, all of this means that evolution itself is prone to change. The process of natural selections on the population of humans has changed significantly since our origin as a species, and will likely continue to change throughout the rest of our existence. If there's one thing that evolution can teach us, is that the only thing that is constant in life is change. Thank you.
Thank you. Bravo.
All right.
How long is that? Oh, boom.